Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Bob Norris,
Yes.
Thank you so much for being on the Mike Litton Experience. I cannot thank you enough.
Well, you mean I don't get paid for this?
You don't actually. The pay is actually terrible for this. It's actually
I'm used
terrible.
to that. Yeah,
So-
talk is cheap.
Absolutely,
I was in
absolutely.
the business for a lot of years.
I love that
I
part.
used to tell my listeners, talk is cheap.
Yeah, and I've actually been told that by Phil that you've got some advice for me. So we're gonna look forward to hearing that. So, as you know, as we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story,
Yes.
and our passion is to help them tell it. And here's what we know: we know that people are going to listen to this podcast. They're going to listen to your story, and they're going to connect with you. There's going to be a number of things. It might be where you went to high school. It might be your favorite subject. It might be the fact that you were in radio for 42 years. It could be anything, right?
Yeah.
It's not every day that I get to sit with a legend and hear your life story. So I'm super excited to have you do this, and I cannot thank you enough for being here.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. That's great enthusiasm you have.
I'm excited for you. So let's talk about where you were born.
Okay, I was born at an early age.
That's good news.
So the doctors told me.
Yeah, that was nice of them.
Born in Anoka, Minnesota,
Okay.
and back in 1938.
Wow. Okay.
Almost a 39, baby. I just had a birthday a week ago, so
happy birthday.
I just turned 85, and
Happy birthday.
this is what the last day of 2023.
Yes, sir. It is.
I've always dreamed that someday I could do a podcast in 2023, and we just made it by one day.
So we made your dream come true. This is good news. This is good news.
I wandered from here to there.
You're
Mike,
all right.
thank you. I was born actually on a little dairy farm north of Minneapolis. My grandfather had a business in Minneapolis during the Depression. He had a big lumber yard.
Okay.
They knew that times were going to be tough, so accountants told him the best thing you can do is buy land. So he went up and bought a small farm north of Minneapolis.
Okay.
Was not even a farmer, but
Okay.
he bought land
Because it was a good
and
investment.
lost the lumber yard as he knew it would happen. So anyway, so I was raised on that dairy farm. It didn't do well. We didn't have that many cows. Dad was a graduate of the University of Minnesota back during the Depression, but when he got out of there, no jobs. But anyway, so Dad had the farm for a few years. He finally leased it to a neighbor. So I worked actually on the farm. I started driving tractor, baling hay as a custom baler, and I was 12 years old. The owner would send me out. I would check the hay for the farmers, and yep, let's bale it. So I had a lot of experience trying to be, it's great being raised on a farm. You have a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah.
Moving forward, I loved sports, but at 8 years old, I came down with rheumatic fever. And I spent the whole summer in bed at 8 years old. The reason I say that, because by the time I was a sophomore in high school at a little town called St. Francis, Minnesota, I was playing some basketball, and I noticed I got hit in the thigh, and it was so sore, I couldn't even go out for practice the next night. And I was such a nut for stuff. My mother used to come and get me out of the hay mound. In the winter, I'd be out there shooting baskets.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I would go to practice even when we had a game that night. That's how radical I was. And I really wasn't that good a ball player.
But you won.
I tell people they retired my number. The trouble is, I was still wearing it at the time. That sounds like a Rodney Dangerfield. But so at almost 15, then I got rheumatic fever again, and it really hit my heart. They almost lost me. I ended up in the hospital in Anoka and Minneapolis for 3 months. Finally came out of there, and it was another month or two before in the little farmhouse they could get me out of bed, and it was a big job to walk from the living room to the kitchen. They had to put a chair in between, so you don't realize you lay still that long. Even as we get older, we better learn to move around a little better. And so
it's true.
And
Don't use it, you lose it, right?
And my heart was 60% enlarged at the time, and it had a terrible murmur. Well, back in the mid-50s, doctors weren't near as alert on what your heart can do as they found out later in life.
Right.
So I was told the only thing you're going to be able to do, Bob, for the rest of your life is just have a real quiet job, like an accountant. Go in and sit down and don't do too much. That's the way I was told. Well, I was always so rambunctious and wanting to do stuff. So that whole year, my sophomore year, I had to take it over again. I was at home. But I would go out and do more things than I should.
Oh, sure.
And when it would affect my heart, and my mother would get after me, and I would get such pains in my back from the heart, I couldn't hardly breathe. I'd be, and I didn't dare let Mother see that, so I'd go to my room and go in there and try to get my wind back. The reason I bring that out, Mike, because interestingly, okay, I guess I'm throwing a lot of things at. I always wanted to learn to fly.
Yeah.
I had a good buddy of mine who became an airline pilot, but I wanted to fly, but here I am then with a heart murmur. So the reason I say that, because I would go out and do more things, and by the time I was took my sophomore year over, by the time then I was a junior, I was getting in a lot better shape. Doing a lot of things that I shouldn't have been doing, supposedly. And I went back to my doctors, and they said, I don't know what you've been doing. He says, but we're going to let you play baseball. My heart had gotten that much better. What we found out years later, what do you do with a heart? It's a muscle. Exercise it.
You got to use it.
See, they told me to lay down, don't do anything, and I had to die to do it.
Yeah.
So I learned something, and then they wouldn't let me play football. It was or basketball, but anyway, baseball. So let's see. Let's move on to.
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay, excuse me.
You're all right. You're all right. What was your favorite thing about growing up where you grew up on that dairy farm?
My favorite thing, I guess I love doing something different. The neighbor of ours, his name was Bud, was kind of my second dad, and he didn't have any kids, he and his wife, so they kind of took me in. I guess I loved doing a lot of different things. I loved driving the tractors and the big equipment at a young age. As far as what I loved, I don't know of anything in particular. It would be
Okay.
playing. We used to play little baseball out in our pasture. I remember getting third base all over my pants. That's what we grew up with. You know? But
third base would actually stick to your pants.
That's what we used for the bases. Was the
Cowboys.
Right. The manufactured hay.
That's right. The natural bases.
It was natural. Yeah, we were into that at that time. We didn't know it.
Yeah, thanks to Mother Nature.
We were trying to recycle things.
So you grow up. You go. Where do you go to high school?
Okay, I went to high school with a little one called St. Francis, which has become, kind of a suburb of Minneapolis now. Minneapolis has grown so much. Anyway. First, let me say, I had an older brother, still do. He's been a pastor for many years. In fact, he still helped out at 89 years old. He was up at Palo Alto and filled in for a while, just a year ago. So I'm pretty proud of my brother.
Oh, that's
but
awesome.
anyway, he waltzed on through school and skipped grades, and then I come along and not quite so bright. And so, and I used to sing some with my brother and my sister, but never, to me, yes, I got to be playing ball. I don't have time to be sitting here doing this.
Yeah.
I look back, and the good Lord has led me through so many things. And I look back when I became later on in life a born-again Christian. I look back how God had his hand on my life, because I remember after I missed a whole year in school, of course I dropped back one, I had a terrible attitude. I just didn't care about anything. If I could get a hold of a beer somewhere, he would. One day, a music director, a guy who had actually played trumpet for the Bob Hope Band during World War II,
Wow.
Loberg was his name. It's funny I remember that. I'm walking down the hall one day, and he comes out, and he says, Bob, puts his arm around me, he says, I need a strong man like you look like, he says, to play the big bass horn. He says, you could do that. I look back, and he some way knew how I was mentally, I needed to get something to be interested in.
Yeah.
So I says, and I was, the sophomore then, and he took me into the band room, and I saw some of these young kids who were 2-3 years younger than me playing these instruments. And I says, me and my big ego, I says, well, if they can do that, I could do that.
Okay.
So I started playing the big old bass horn. Well, then I, of all things, got into the choir. So
Really?
here I am singing. And then I got into some drama. We did the high school plays. I think my 2 years of that, I got into that. And then once in a while, I was president of my class for 2 years in a row.
There you go.
But we had about 30 people.
Sorry.
Nobody wanted this.
Sorry.
So
Did you run unopposed?
so it wasn't much of a campaign.
No, that's all right. That's
But-
all right. Hey, you rose to leadership, right? When nobody else was willing to take it, you took it.
Yeah,
pretty
that's
cool.
right. And
That says something
well, I
about
always,
you.
always liked people, had a lot of fun in school, and some teachers enjoyed that humor. Some people, Jackie Gleason said he only went through 8th grade. I remember reading his book. He says, school is no place for a comedian.
Yeah.
It's
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. The
It's
teachers
like-
don't appreciate
It's
it.
like one day I show up in class and I'd forgot my book, a history book, and a friend of mine, Ralph, and I told the teacher, I says, me and Ralph forgot our books. She says, Ralph and I forgot our books. I says, oh, did you forget yours too? That kind of stuff. Well, some people enjoy
They
it.
don't appreciate it.
Some didn't.
They just don't have an appreciation for it.
So as I'm president of the class, so I had to do a few things, it would be certain things we do to represent the class, and I would speak on a PA microphone system. Well, I had a teacher one day come up to me and he says, Bob, he says, you've got a good voice. He says, you ought to get into radio. I thought, So anyway, I get out of school, and Minnesota rehabilitation, clear back in the 50s, Minnesota was very good about somebody with a medical condition like mine, got a hold of me and said that they would pay for my education.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm not much into socialism, but
Wow.
I said, wow.
Yeah.
So I kept that in mind, and they said, what do you want to do? And I said, I really don't know. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So they tested me, all this. And it always showed I'd be good with people.
Yeah.
I'd be good with people. So that's kind of a broad scope.
Well, I can see that though. I mean, you love people, and it's obvious, and people love you. You and I hit it off immediately.
Yes, we did.
And it's done nothing but get better. You know what I mean? It's just I love every second that I spend with you. You're such an amazing light, and you're so much fun to talk to, and you have so many amazing stories. That's the thing that just, you know what I mean? And you've lived so much life. Like you've lived so much, and you've experienced so much. And we're not going to have time to cover everything, but
Yeah.
I do have a quick question for you. So
Yes.
you graduated high school.
Yes.
If you look back at high school, Did you have a favorite subject?
Science, the chemistry, and
Okay.
that type of thing. Had a great chemistry teacher, and shop class. I like shop.
Yeah, I did too, actually.
I guess I haven't thought too much about that. I guess it would be, and I wasn't too bad a student, but once they got me straightened out again, and I got involved in music, got into a quartet with my sister and good friends of ours. I'm Bob. My sister's name is Mary. One of my good friends' name is Bob. Guess what his sister's name was? Mary. Yeah. And we had a quartet.
I love that.
But and Bob played the guitar and stuff. But anyway, that was kind of fun. We did those things. But anyway,
so the state tests you. You test for being a people person, right?
Yes.
And they decide, and somehow they decide to get you in radio. Is that what happened?
Well, here's what happened. I got out of high school, and I didn't have a job. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Later on, Dad had another guy and I paint the house, paid us for that. My folks work at a state hospital for the mentally disturbed people in Minnesota, which I'm going to put a plug in here. A number of your homeless people in prison, because I had experience.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.